All right, welcome everybody. It's always something. We're so happy that you're here. We're getting started in, well, now we can get started in about 30 seconds. So thank you so much for letting us know in doing this for everybody. Jeez. We're so just hold on one second while we get that figured out and then we'll get started. We're so happy that everybody is here. And hopefully folks can hear me now. This is the best way to start off. Okay, great. I can get started. And I think that now everybody can hear me. Welcome, welcome. We really appreciate people taking some time out of your day on a Sunday afternoon. And I know for some folks, you have holiday things starting off soon. So we are going to spend some time together. I have a presentation that I'll show you our safety protocols and some updates for the summer. And then I'll take live questions. So my name is Nicole, and I'm just going to turn off my music. I'm the character, and I took a 7-year-old. Not so long ago, but long enough ago. And then this summer will be my 5th year as director. So I'm beyond excited. And I think for me, I am most looking forward to being able to be down in base camp. I'm just in those moments when our cabins are all full and everything is just smooth and everybody's moving and everyone's enjoying. And it's one of those days that is just beautiful and sunny and we get that fresh air and we get to go in the water. And there's just something that I find really perfect about that time. So that's what I'm looking forward to most this summer. And if you want to share anything that you're looking forward to, please put that in the comments. And then also, as we go through the presentation, please put questions in the comments. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll go through and I'll pull questions from there. And then you can put new questions in too. And that way we'll be able to have a dialogue. All right. Here we go. I'm just gonna make sure that folks can see my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Thanks so much for being here. Let me just make sure. I think there's a bit of a delay, so sorry as we get started. But I don't want to go forward without making sure that my screen view is working for all of you guys on YouTube Live, because I can see it here on Zoom. If you want to let me just know in the comments. Okay, great. I think we're all set. So let me bring up presentation. For folks who know me, you know that we do all of our camping totally unplugged, and we don't use computers in the summer and we don't have Wi-Fi. And so this past year has been quite the adventure for me, to say the least. Obviously, there have been all sorts of things that have come up for all of us. But for me, the technological part of things is always like a little bit of a learning curve. So I thank you all so much for your patience. All right, so we're going to be talking about this summer. We got our guidelines from the state of Massachusetts this past week, and we'd already planned this, but I wanted to integrate those into what we'll be talking about today. And just put your questions in the chat and we'll get to those. All right, our mission at Smith Park, I wanted to put that up at the beginning because I think it's so important that we all just keep in mind that camp will be opening in a pandemic this summer, and so things will be adjusted, we'll be making changes, but at the core is going to be what we always do at camp and what we've done at camp for over 100 years, and that is to really build our minds and our spirit and our friendships, and take on challenges by choice and really do all of that in a supportive community. And everything that we do this summer will be keeping that in mind and keeping that mission central. What we love most about camp is going to get to be part of how all of our days are framed. So the lake is going to be open and we're going to be swimming and we're going to be boating, and we'll be having archery as options and hiking. and fires and those games that we love to play together as a whole camp. We're already working together as a staff team to just really think about how do we get all those pieces in, even though things will be different. Those things that we love most, we're going to be pulling those pieces together and making sure that they're part of the way the summer unfolds. We also are just so excited that we're able to do this at this point. And last summer, for those that were with us last summer, you know, we were open for family camp, but the state of Massachusetts didn't allow sleepaway camp, and Smith Park, our nonprofit, also didn't advise. And so we didn't have overnight camp last summer, but this summer we're excited about how much more we know about the new green light we've been given by the state and their guidelines, and just about the greater infrastructure that we have at our disposal to be able to know that when we put in a varied approach, we can really do our best to prevent COVID from coming to camp, and then also that we'll have things in place to mitigate anything that does come up. And I just wanted to start at the beginning, just so people have a sense that we do have this larger network that really advises us. We're licensed by the state of Massachusetts. And so all of our guidelines will follow their minimum standard. And then we use the Center for Disease Control and the American Camp Association to really layer on the additional industry-specific protocols that they recommend. And then we're part of the Massachusetts Camping Association, which has been an incredible resource for really pulling together a whole team approach in the region to how we're doing overnight camp this summer. And I love this illustration. I used this with the staff a week ago, and it's called the Swiss cheese respiratory virus defense. And basically the idea when you look here is that if we think of a respiratory virus as being these little green germs coming in, that really what we're thinking about for this summer is layering in a whole series of both personal and shared responsibilities that we can use as a community. And there are holes, no one method is 100%, but the idea here is to layer them together so that as you move across, you're really blocking any respiratory virus from having a widespread impact at camp. And so now we're going to talk about the guidelines for resident camp. I'm going to go into a few slides. These are maybe a little bit more dense. I really do want to provide specifics for folks that are looking for that level of detail. And as you have questions as I go through the slides, please put them in. And especially if there's campers that have questions, want to know what the impact would be to a certain part of the day, please chime in with that. And I also want to say that this is the first draft of guidelines. And so over the next few months, we'll be meeting with the Department of Health. We'll be meeting on site with our health department. We'll really go through a lot of work. And these are likely to get updated, and we'll have these forums once a month until camp, and I'll just be keeping you up to date on how things are progressing. So the first thing that our guidelines really help us to know more about is what camp will be like before, or what we'll be doing before camp starts. So the state of Massachusetts is asking everyone that comes to camp to quarantine, a self-quarantine for 10 days before coming to camp, and to monitor symptoms for COVID-19. Your registration portal for camp will have a mechanism for logging this self-quarantine and for letting us know about any potential symptoms. We will be asking everyone to have a test, and the guidelines say 72 hours before traveling to camp. And I know that brings up the question, when do you actually take the test? When do you actually get the results? When do you post it? That's something we're waiting for guidance for. So we'll know more definitely in enough time for everybody to plan. So it'll be a 72-hour window, and exactly how that relates to the actual taking of the test, the actual getting of results is still something that we're waiting to know more about. And then of course, we'll be asking everyone to travel to camp using those best practices that have been developed over the past year in terms of really mitigating any risk while you're out in public. For camp, our check-in process will have some things that folks are used to in the past, like we'll be meeting with the nurse at the top of the hill, but a change for this summer is that's where all drop-off will happen. So our nurse Nella will be there, as well as our pediatric nurse for the session, and they'll be managing check-in. There will be an additional test that will be required, and then we'll have cabin counselors and other campers grouping up together and then moving down into base camp. And visitors for this summer, both at check-in and at all times during the time when overnight camp is happening, won't be going down into base camp. And so for the next 2 weeks, we now have a bit more clarity in terms of how we'll be breaking camp up and how we'll be traveling through our program. So campers will be in cabins of 6 to 8, and they will stay together until that first round of tests that we took at drop off come back. Then after that first little period, we may move to cohorts. For example, cabins that have 6 campers may pair up with another cabin that has 6 campers. That limit of 12 is what we learned from Massachusetts for this past week. And so that's what we're basing our planning around. Once we have that initial group, there won't be any mixing from that point forward. When we're not in cohorts, or when we're using the beacon, which is our word for the bathroom and the bathhouse, when we're moving in and out of meals, when we're moving around camp, we will wear masks. And when we're in those pods, those cohorts, we won't need to wear masks. And then throughout the day, we'll have a similar program or a similar routine that campers might have seen from last summer, if you've seen our promotional materials. But we'll be making the adjustments so that it's cabin based. So we're still going to go through a range of activities, a range of types of things that we're doing. We'll still get to have campers connected to all the favorite things that are around camp, but this summer we'll be doing it in these cohorts. And when it comes to travel outside of camp, the state of Massachusetts is discouraging it. We'll be looking at that more closely for our teen program, for our CIT leadership program, potentially for our base camp program with our local Board of Health. And we'll give you an update as we get a little closer to summer. And then when it comes to keeping clean at camp and added sanitation, we'll be doing a whole bunch as campers come in, just to remind everybody about the basic ways that we want to keep each other safe and healthy at camp, from washing hands and how we cough and how we sneeze. And then we're adding a hand washing station into base camp to make that easier, and so that it's going to be able to move faster. Everything will be sanitized more times per day. And we're looking at our dining setup right now, and we'll let you know soon how that might work out. We may adjust meal times and have folks go in shifts, or we may think of it about a new, larger way or a more spread out way between our lodge and our dining hall to have everybody eat at the same time. And then what happens if a camper or a staff gets sick? So right at the beginning, everybody will get an orientation around monitoring and reporting symptoms, and our camp nurse will be screening campers and staff for symptoms every day. If there are symptoms, guardians will be contacted. We'll have tests on hand to administer, and a camper or staff will isolate until results come back. More details about the exact test that we'll use, what that window might look like, we will know more about that in the next few months. And communication with guardians will be really key during this, and will be a big part of what we do. We have a landline at camp. We don't have cell service, but it's very typical for us in any emergency situation to maintain close contact with our families when we need to. If we do have a positive case, we'll be coordinating with our local Department of Health, and then campers will isolate at home and not return to camp until they're 24 hours free of a fever and they have a negative test. And staff will also appropriately isolate outside of camp. Sorry about the typo. Outside of base camp. And we are still looking at whether or not we may have the opportunity for staff to isolate in other parts of the property if that's needed. And then we really want you to stick with us, and there's more things that we're figuring out. We got these guidelines on Tuesday. Our staff has already started also having a monthly check-in with me. And so part of what we're really now looking for and doing together is making that schedule, which we'll be able to send out for folks so that you can see where there might be changes. We are really excited to be welcoming Maggie Hodis this summer as our waterfront director. Maggie grew up at camp. She's an incredible swim teacher. She's already thinking about ideas, and we're going to be coming back to you to just tell you more about how swim clinics will look this summer and what new games we'll bring to the water. The water is a huge part of what we do. And so even though we'll be using it more on a cabin basis, we're just committed to making sure that it's still a big part of every camper's day. And then we'll share more about programs, and we'll be publishing our COVID-19 protocols on May 15th. And so we'll have another one of these before that, and then we'll publish them. And we are trying to just give time, knowing that things are going to change, so that we're really staying totally up to date with what we're gonna put down as our final protocol. As I said earlier, please ask questions, and I'm gonna go to those questions in just a second. In particular, I wanna encourage campers to ask questions. We wanna hear what you're thinking about, what your ideas are, and we especially wanna know if you have concerns. And so please be in touch with me. And if you're new to camp and you've never come to camp before and you'd like to be connected with an experienced camper, please reach out to me for that too. We just had our first CIT new camper session before this, and that's something that we can do. And we just want to make sure that your questions get answered, and you can be in touch with me via email, and we will be excited to hear that. So we're so thankful for everyone for coming. As I said at the beginning, Zoom is not the way that I'm used to doing camp, but there are some things that are really helpful, and I love that we've had this opportunity to think about how we can get people more connected to camp earlier, and so that has been really positive. And I'm going to go to the chat now and see what questions were asked. What is in camp, but what I'm realizing as we go along and do this is that for me to see the chat, I think I have to play this. We learn something new every single time we do a camp thing, because we're always changing our format just a little bit, and I'm not sure that I can see the question. So give me just 1 second so that I can coordinate with Camp Wawa there and see if I can get the questions texted to me. Okay, great question about vaccines. So some of our counselors have already been vaccinated. Some of our staff have been vaccinated or are in the process of getting vaccinated. We are doing everything we can to support staff to be vaccinated. It's not a requirement at this time, but we, at our last staff update together, we got to have one of our staff alumni come back, who is now working as a EMT technician, and she's been supporting vaccination clinics. So she came on and she was able to really answer questions and share information about the vaccine, and do some peer support in that way. And our nurse Nella is also coordinating with staff to answer any questions. So we're really supporting staff to get vaccinated as much as we possibly can. We do have some staff that live in states where they're not eligible yet. So that's one of the things that will just take a little bit of time over the next month. Yes, so thank you for that question about testing. So for now, testing will be for everybody at 2 times, and then we'll also have tests available for symptoms. So folks will get tested before you come to camp and then also at arrival. And I'm just waiting to see if there are any other questions. So we'll give it just a couple more minutes. And if you have a question or you thought of something, we will take them. And you can also email me. But I hope everybody has had a really nice Sunday. And I know I've had rain all day, but maybe in some parts you've had some sun. I've started to clean up my garden a little bit. But I hope people are getting excited, and I hope you'll be in touch. And I know I put this out in the email, but I'll just say this at the end. If anybody is on the waiting list, then please do reach out to me if you have questions. We've been adding campers to bunks. We capped our capacity, and now as we get these guidelines, we're really re-looking at our bunk plan and seeing where we might have a spot, and then we're adding campers in. So you do that through our website, which is www.campwawa.com, and you can be in touch with me if you have questions about that. And so also, if you have friends who are interested in camp, you can let them know that they definitely should go onto the waiting list. Doesn't cost anything. It's pretty quick. And that's where we're moving campers into bunks from at this point. And then our family camp program is in August. It's an enormous amount of fun. There are still cabins open for that. And that's the opportunity for a whole family or a group of friends, or some neighbors or folks who haven't seen each other in a while. It really can be any kind of group can come out to camp and enjoy all the camp stuff that the campers get to enjoy in July. So I want to thank everybody. And I want to wish you a really awesome day. And I want to ask that you just keep in touch with us and let us know if you have any concerns. But thank you guys so much. And I really appreciate you being here. And I hope everybody has a really nice night and a great week.